Guys, this is Fang/VA here, coming at you with a bit of a more old school video. We're going to a little bit down memory lane here. So if you're new here, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe and hit that bell button. So let's get started. This year marks the 20th anniversary of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. And this movie is very important to me because there was back in summer of 2012, me and my nephew, we both binged a bunch of horror movies. This one being one of them. This was actually the one that stood out to me the most. I loved how Leatherface looked. I loved how crazy Sheriff Hoyt was. I loved how dark it was. And this movie, to me, is very special. And this is actually a movie I will always defend because, obviously, as people know with horror movies, there's always those people out there that don't want to give a remake a chance because it's a remake. And how dare they remake a classic film? When here's the thing, the mass majority of Hollywood, well, I take that back. The freaking award shows, they do not respect horror at all. Why? Because they are pretty easy to make. There's not really any strong character development most of the time. And all the other stuff in them. So I never understood why there were some people in this community that feel the need to literally express their disdain for a remake so heavily to the point they will go after people that simply like it. And that to me is so disgusting. That is such toxic behavior. Because at the end of the day, opinions are subjective. But this remake started the whole trend of them doing remakes on big horror movies because we have the Dawn of the Dead remake, which that's actually is a remake. Like, I know that I should watch, but I love the freaking original too much, and I like how kind of campy it is. I don't want to see a more serious remake. And then of course we had the Rob Zombie Halloween remake. We had the Friday 13th 2009. We had the 2010 Nightmare on Elm Street remake. We had the My Bloody Valentine remake. Like this movie set up the whole remake trend. And but getting back to memory lane, after I first watched this movie, I wanted to dress up as that Leatherface. Even then, Leatherface was my favorite horror character. And I'm not kidding either. And I remember looking up Leatherface masks, and one showed up. And I might even provide my editor the exact pic I saw, just to throw more context. It was the Tommy V3 made by AM Creation. For the longest time, that mask was my holy grail because at the time that mask was seen as movie accurate as you can get. but it took me a lot of years because I later found out that the mask maker is a bit of is a bit difficult to deal with, and you have to go through a painstakingly process on getting your mask. So I don't know if he has improved since then. I know that he has a new sculpt for his Tommies. It's just my taste has changed. I mean, sure, like, there are still AM Creations masks that I want to get eventually, but when it comes to the remake masks, fortunately and or unfortunately, the best one to get is the Batman V2 made by Art by UM. And the biggest problem with that is that he just did a limited run. And like I said many times, I get why they do that, and I respect it. But you can do what a lot of other mask makers do, is where, you do a limited run of 10 for the first batch. And then you do like another 10 for like the second batch, maybe a couple months down the road. And stuff like that. But I digress. Now, obviously, what's so kind of interesting about the remake is that it has two different masks. And for the longest time, I didn't know this. I thought it was the same mask. I thought that it was always Andrew Bernarski playing Tommy. Well, as it turns out, during the first Leatherface scene, the Kemper kill, that Leatherface was portrayed by a guy named Brett Wanger, Wagner. I'm sorry if I pronounced your last name, dude. And he has a different mask. So when they brought Andrew in, they probably had to retool the mask a little bit, probably to change it up. And there are replicas of the um of the mask used during the first appearance of him, when he drags Kemper and then he shuts, the door when he slams the door. Um like, actually, the freaking Head Skinner Revisited is actually based off that mask. And you can even find like masks being made using the actual screen used version of that mask. It's just, out of the two masks I prefer the one that Andrew wore. I love how the eye cuts are. I love the, mouth flap that they have. Um, but I love both masks, and I think both guys that portrayed Leatherface in that movie did a good job. And yes, I know what Andrew said about Gunner. I'm not going to talk about that in this video. You know, that whole feud between the two of them, in my opinion, was over nothing, because I don't even want to get into that. And so, like, ever since, I saw that mask, I wanted one, and I wanted to do a costume. And even to this day, I'm still working on that costume, because every year seems like there's always something new that, that bumps up the movie accuracy. For the longest time, people thought it was a tarp apron, but from a friend, it turns out it's this different material. The fact that there are two separate masks. Okay, let me. I just remember something. I knew about the first mask. I had no idea that that mask was going to be the mask used by Leatherface throughout the whole film. I thought it was the mask that, that the Tommy was based off. Maybe it just fell through tough times or something. Because keep in mind, at the time, I wasn't that knowledgeable about this. Um, and so my buddy Jack Chap One helped me with, the costume. But I do know I plan on doing one final revision of my remake costume. And I know who I'm going through because Creepy Customs has done a accurate reproduction of the shirt used in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. And honestly, it's about time. Honestly, I wish that shirt existed even before all this because it would have made things a lot more easier. Because quite literally, you had to go with a shirt that looked pretty close, or you get lucky and find an actual Catalina. And the remake mask is actually one mask I would have no problem collecting every single one that's out there. That's how much I love that mask. Both of them. Which is why I'm eyeing one on eBay right now. But the ultimate mask I want to get is a Batman V2. I almost got my hands on one, but it just wasn't meant to be yet. Um, I love this movie. I don't care what anyone says. And, people have their opinions, and I respect anyone's opinion. But do not attack others if they like this movie. That's all I'm gonna say. I loved everything about the remake. And honestly, as much as the Texas Chainsaw fan base is probably going to get pretty triggered at me for saying this, Andrew Benarski and also Brett Winger, and I hope I'm saying his last name right, and especially Andrew, did a fantastic job playing Leatherface. Do I think that he's the Jason Voorhees of Texas? No. And happy 20th anniversary. I know I did this a little late, but hey, better late than never, right? So let me know what you all thought about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake down below in the description, in the comments. Let me know if you collect masks, and I'll see you all in 3 years when we're here talking about why I love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning. So, with that said, I'll be seeing you all in the next one. Later, guys.